When you see the inside of one of these filters, you are going to be shocked. Welcome to another episode of Riding and Wrenching.
Wait, what?
Welcome to the biggest little YouTube channel in the entire interwebs.
I am your host, Q the Rider, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about oil filters. Before I get started, I want to recognize the sponsors for Riding and Wrenching. Wings Customs, the maker of premium custom-made handlebars and other accessories for your Harley Davidson motorcycle, and Volunteer Audio, who installs premium sound systems on your Harley. Check them out and let them know that you heard about it here on Riding and Wrenching. Let's get into it. In this episode, we're going to talk about oil filters, and I'm going to share with you how I'm going to compare and judge these filters against one another. Now, as a consumer, we can only use the information that's readily available to us. So the things that are important to me: cost, availability, and there's also two specifications that I found on most of these filters that help us decide how effective they are. One is the size of the particle that they can filter, measured in microns. The smaller the number, the smaller the particle, as well as the efficiency of filtering the oil. Now, the two oil filters that I did not buy for this test, one of them is from AMSOIL, the other one is from Wix. Now, the AMSOIL filter is the most expensive filter. It's approximately $26, $25 or $26. The Wix filter is about, it is $16 from O'Reilly Auto Parts. Now, that Wix filter price-wise fits right in the middle of what I have here. I just opted not to buy it. The AMSOIL filter was just too expensive. I don't see any point in spending that much for a filter. Next, I'm going to talk about the Harley Davidson filter. Now, the Harley Davidson filter, in my opinion, well, for me, the Harley Davidson filter is the gold standard. The reason I say it's the gold standard is I've had great luck with them. Actually, I'm not going to call it luck. These filters are sold by Harley Davidson and installed on their motorcycles, and Harley Davidson has a vested financial interest in making sure that their oil filters are effective. And in 95,000 miles with Harley Davidson filters exclusively, zero engine problems. Absolutely nothing. My motorcycle has been very reliable. Now, learning a little bit more about how filters work. The filter obviously screws onto the motor, and there's some holes around the outside here. These holes are where the oil flows into the filter. The unfiltered or dirty oil flows in. The filter does its magic, and then the big hole in the middle, that's where the filtered oil comes out. Now, if we look on the inside of the Harley Davidson filter, you have a pretty simple design. You know, this is your base plate. And again, these are the holes that we talked about earlier. On the inside of that base plate is a rubber gasket. This is a backflow prevention gasket. It allows oil to flow in, but prevents unfiltered oil from flowing out. Now, once the oil goes into the filter, the oil flows around the outside of the filter and is pushed through this filtering material. It's a fiber paper type material. It's held in place by these two metal caps on the outside, and then it's also glued in place. And you can see the green glue that's kind of sloppily applied here. It's all over the place, but the green glue helps hold the filter together. On the top of the filter is a bypass valve, and what that bypass valve does, it allows oil to bypass the filter in the event the filter is clogged or there's some other issue. Maybe it's cold outside and the oil is thick and the filter is not as effective. Anyway, the bypass valve will open up and allow unfiltered oil to flow back into the motor. Unfiltered oil is better than no oil. So that's how they work. All these filters operate on the same basic principle. And as we open them up, you're going to see they're all designed basically the same way. The next filter we're going to take a look at is from K&N, and one of the obvious differences with the K&N filter compared to the Harley filter is the size. The Harley filter is a little bit taller. You also see a little nut on the top of the K&N filter. That's because it can be removed with a 17 millimeter socket. I actually like that. The filter also is just a little bit more attractive. Seems to have better paint job, not that it matters, but it's also packaged extremely well. When you buy the K&N filter, there's a plastic wrap on the bottom. That was the only filter that had that, and it has this little useless piece of paper. So when you open up the K&N filter, you see a similar design. You have the pleated filter material. It's glued in place. You have two plates on the top and bottom held in place by glue. This is your backflow prevention, and you have your bypass valve here on top. So it operates basically the same way. You put them side by side. The Harley filter is a little bit taller, so there's more filtering material. The spacing between the filters, there's more spacing between the K&N filter, so maybe that means there's more material, I guess. But the material itself looks a little bit different. Obviously, the Harley filter is white, but it appears to be a little bit thicker. Now, another difference between these two filters is the casing itself. This casing material is a little bit thicker than the casing material for the Harley. The Harley's it's thinner. So what advantage does that give you? The only thing I can imagine is if a rock or something were flying and hit your filter. This one can probably sustain a little bit rougher impact than the Harley filter. The next filter we're going to talk about is from Fram. It is the least expensive filter coming in you buy it at Walmart, and they're $8.45 each if you buy it in a pack of 6. The Fram filter is $15.46 each from Amazon, and $14.22 if you buy it in a pack of 2. So the Fram filter is roughly half the cost of the Harley filter. So let's open it up and see what's on the inside. Same basic concept. You have your backflow prevention. This is your flapper valve, or your, this is your backflow prevention. This is your bypass valve on top. But as we look at the Fram filter, we see several key differences between the Fram filter and the filter from Harley Davidson. The Fram filter is roughly the same size in terms of the size of the filtering material, but it is made differently. Instead of metal caps on the end, this is cardboard, or this is some kind of fiber cardboard, which is also glued in place. You can see the inside of the filter better, and it's, in my opinion, very cheaply made. There's a reason that this is the least expensive filter, and it's just the construction of it. I will not use one of these Fram filters on my bike. Even looking at the filtering material itself, you have large spaces in between the pleats of the filtering material. It's not evenly spaced, and honestly, it looks cheap. It looks very cheap. I won't use one of these. There's no way. Now, the funny thing is that Fram has a lot of negative comments about it online, and opening this filter up, I can see why. Because when I was looking at price alone, yeah, this is a no-brainer, but you get what you pay for in this case. Last filter we're going to talk about is from is branded at STP. I picked this up from AutoZone. Biggest problem I've seen with this filter is that I think it's the wrong filter for my bike. I looked up the product number, and it doesn't seem to match what is sold for a Harley Davidson motorcycle. So I'm not sure why they sold me this filter. But when I open it up, similar construction methods to everything else, to all the others. You have your backflow prevention, which goes on the bottom. You have a bypass valve on top. You have the filter material in the middle. There's metal caps on the top and bottom held in place by glue. This one is very, very tight. And again, comparing it to the Harley filter, it's even tighter than the Harley filter. Now, again, which one filters better? I don't know. I don't have a good way of measuring that, but it seems to be a well-constructed filter. It's very nice looking. It's the neatest looking of the filters, because you see all the glue on the bottom of the Harley filter. This one is very nicely constructed. I kind of like it, but I just don't think it's made for my bike, so I'm not going to use that one. So the bottom line for me, it really comes down to the filters from Harley and K&N. And I like the Harley filter better for a couple of reasons. Number one, it has more, it's taller, and it has more filtering material, and you can see that very clearly here. The K&N filter seems to be very nicely made. They look exactly the same construction design, but again, it's just shorter. The filtering material, I like the way it looks on the Harley filter better than the K&N filter, and I know that's not a great way to measure it, but that's all I've got because the K&N doesn't provide the specs on how effective its filtering material is. Now, out of fairness, K&N makes other filters. They make air filters as well, and Harley Davidson uses their filters. So obviously it's a good product. There's a lot about the design that I like, but the size of the filter concerns me because this is just more area for oil to flow through. So it seems like this one would have better oil flow based on the amount of filtering material. Now, when I look at the bottom of them, again, this is where the oil comes out. This has a bigger hole, so maybe it makes up for the smaller height with a bigger hole to allow more oil to flow out of it. So I don't know. I'm just going to stick with what's worked for me, and that's the filter from Harley Davidson. Priced-wise, it's not the most expensive. It's also not the cheapest, but it's effective and it works. Now, I produced another video where I compare motor oil, so be sure to check that one out as well. This is Q. I'm riding, I'm wrenching, and I am out.
Peoples, what's going on? I am Finesse, and you can find me on YouTube at Finesse the Challenger. But today, I'm on the biggest little biggest little channel on the entire interwebs. I don't even know, man. My bad.